What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Alan Wake 2 yet again in regards to sales. And I'm sorry we had to keep bringing this up, but I'll tell you exactly why we had to keep bringing it up. Number one, this is an amazing game, in my opinion. It's my game of the year. And why I talk about what seems to be terrible sales numbers, even though we don't have the official numbers, we can kind of gauge how the game is doing. The reason why I bring that up is because I love this game. And number one, I want to see it do well. But number two, I respect the heck out of what Remedy is doing. I think they're doing something at the scale that they are that's unlike anything in the gaming industry. But much like everything in this world, everything is dictated by money. And I do get extremely afraid that, number one, you will never see an Alan Wake 3. And stop me if you've heard that before, because we just had that play out between Alan Wake and now Alan Wake 2. But number two, forget Alan Wake. What about just Remedy in general? Now, you could say Control, and Control did do better. And you could also say we could just go back to Control. Or the one thing that definitely would play devil's advocate against myself here would be, well, long-term sales. The game doesn't have to sell its entire, life expectancy in 2-3 weeks. And that is true. And I want it to happen. I want this game, obviously, to do well long-term. And at this point, I think it's going to have to do well long-term because, remember, weeks ago, I was talking about, okay, well, I'm starting to get a little worried. I'd love to see them say that the game has sold at least like 1 million units. I think they will when it happens. And people had pointed out, Control actually started slow. Alan Wake started slow, but again, Control actually did pretty darn well over time. But we continue to get not numbers, but different kind of metrics. So we actually got some reports of like the top selling games, I believe, of October. Alan Wake is not on there, and that's understandable considering it came out right at the very end of the month. Now, I will again play devil's advocate to say if the game did super well, and we've had this case play out before. If a game comes out the last, say, week of a month, you could say, well, you don't expect it to be like top 5 and say like the sales, but when it does, that shows just the significance of that game, how powerful that game was. Okay, Alan Wake 2 didn't do that. Well, this metric, there is no sugarcoating it. This metric is, I think, abysmal. And I didn't even know this was a thing. I gotta be honest with you. I've seen like the NPD stuff and people talk about it, and I'll like think about it or like retweet it or whatever. But this stat is actually taking a look at the top 150 played games on the PS5 and Series X or Xbox console, let's just say. Now, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know there was some sort of report that tracks the most played games. I guess that there is, okay? So let's just throw that one out there. The sad thing is that Alan Wake 2 is not on this list. Now, again, I don't care when it came out in October. Top 150 games. If this was not in the top 150 games, you, I believe, would lose steam after you get to game like 25, 30, how about 40, how about 70 or 75? The point is, eventually you think, okay, there's a lot of games out there, there's a lot of people out there, but eventually, like say when you reach number 100, how many people are even playing game number 100 out of 150, right? And the fact that this game is not even in the top 150, I think is terrible. Now, as has been pointed out, right, in terms of Epic doesn't help things because they don't share numbers, and that makes the entire thing like dirtier, just like harder to kind of figure out, right? So we don't know, maybe it's doing, but the joke is, and I've seen people kind of tweet this, the joke is, oh, well, everybody must be playing it on the great, platform that is the Epic Games Store. And it's like, no, I mean, that's the joke, right? I think it's actually not a lot of people, especially, I don't know, maybe it's nitpicking or like grasping at straws or whatever, but like the requirements to play this game, I know when it came out, the requirements kind of like blew it out of proportion, right? That you needed like a supercomputer in order to run this game. Truth is, you really didn't, and that only came out once people bought it. But the thing is, maybe like average people, look, we don't all live online. Not everybody cares about how many nominations a game gets to the Game Awards, and that does kind of move into part 2 of this discussion where, I guess I took a couple jabs at people there, but in all reality, here's the thing. The one thing that people bring up in terms of, defending or saying like, don't worry too much, like maybe it's got legs. I hope so. I'm not here to say, like, I hope Alan Wake 2 dies and, like, there's no reason to believe any of these people. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just concerned, number one. And number two, I've got my own thoughts. I just want to kind of express it to you, and you are more than free to agree or disagree with me. That's totally, I'll respect you if you respect me. But what I've seen a lot of people say, and I actually do not agree with this, I've seen a lot of people say, well, with all the praise that it's gotten, with all like reviews, with all the nominations at the Game Awards it's gotten, maybe even like the music and all that, maybe it again does well going into November and December. Okay, I think Black Friday can help. Black Friday, I think, helps a lot of games. Games that came out even this past January, right? Like 12 months or 11 months, I guess, at that point ago. It can help games in February, like Hogwarts Legacy will continue to be successful 10 months after it came out because of Black Friday, okay? It will help. It will help. But, like, it helps a lot of games. It doesn't just help Alan Wake. And I still firmly believe we have not hit 1 million, or they have not. It's not my money. It's not going to me. They have not hit 1 million units on this game. Now, again, you know, Control took a while, Alan Wake took a while, but not in the top 100. Like, let's just go back. 150 games that were played. I mean, obviously way more than that, but the top 150 games, and Alan Wake 2 was not in it. That is atrocious. And I think the writing was definitely on the wall, and I mean, I kind of saw it, but I also, like, I was worried. I made multiple videos saying I was worried about this game's sales. I didn't think it'd be this bad. And I guess that's subjective because we don't know how bad it actually is, but I feel like it's kind of terrible, and I didn't think it would be like that. I thought, I don't know, the survival horror stuff, right? Like, it feels a lot like Resident Evil. Do Resident Evil people like want to pick it up or something? You know, I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. But I guess to my point of, and where I disagree with other people, when it comes to the gaming industry, I think people are not swayed as much by these things as some think they are. And what I mean by that is, are you gonna go on the PlayStation Store or Xbox Store or whatever and get this game because you saw it was nominated for a tie for the highest? You know, I think Baldur's Gate and Alan Wake both did it for like 7 or 8, you know, nominations at the Game Awards. Does that make any average person buy Alan Wake? And I think the answer is no. I think Alan Wake is so niche. And again, like, we're terminally online. For better or worse, we are online. And I think, yes, we see it. We knew about Alan Wake going into it. We've known about Alan Wake since 2010, right? But for the average Joe, and I actually have a friend of mine that is actually a really good kind of case study because he doesn't watch trailers. He'll maybe watch one trailer for a game and then just get the game. And I envy that in terms of, like, he goes in kind of blind. Do you think he cares? And, you know, he's not everybody, but the average person. And here's the thing. You need those average people. You're not looking for these internet kind of minority, because we are the minority. So in all truth be told, when it comes to Alan Wake 2 sales, you want it to hit and breach into the wider air, like when The Last of Us comes out, or even when, say, like a Dead Space or Baldur's Gate or Hogwarts Legacy. Let's go for the really big ones. These games kind of transcend, and they're not just for the people online. They're not just for people like me that make videos on all the news. They're for the average Joe. They go into a store, if people still do that, and, you know, they see the game and they get the game. Here's another thing that certainly I don't think has helped. And again, I would disagree with some people. I do not think the physical, non-physical, you know, release of Alan Wake, I don't think that ruined them. I think that hurt them. But, like, the people that are saying, well, you know, if it had a physical release, like, we wouldn't have... If the game has sold, let's just say, if the game sold, like, 300 or 400,000 units, if you made the game physical, I bet you would get, at most, like, 100,000. You'd maybe get 20 to 25% of what you've done digitally. And that could be actually way too much, to be honest with you. Because, again, you're working with a niche game, a game that is very specific. So the game may not have even sold 300,000, 400,000 units. Maybe it sold 150,000. And then what? If it released physically, you'd be getting, what do you want to say, 50,000? So now it's at 200,000. That's great. It needs a couple million, right? So it's like, it doesn't, my point, like, it does matter. I think it matters for game preservation, and we've talked about that in the past. But I would disagree there. I think physical has hurt it, but it hasn't killed it. I think what's killed it is just simply, and it's what we've mentioned before, and it's why I hope, you know, I'm not, like, upsetting people that I've done too many videos like this, but, like, it is such a great game for me. Like, I do love it so much, but it's so specific, and I guess it's the game's fault of its own creation. It's Sam Lake's fault. It's Remedy's fault. It's like, it just doesn't do well. And I guess you could say, well, that's not necessarily a problem. You're right. I don't want it to change. I don't want an Alan Wake 3 to be any different than what they've done. You know, I want it to be just as weird, just as direct to the core audience. The issue is there is no core audience. In all reality, there's audience that watches things. The Old Gods of Asgard music video probably has more, it's at like 500,000 views right now. It's got more views than the game has sales. 100%. How much you want to bet? And that's like the problem is, yeah, the videos do well. Yeah, I'm sure people have watched it. I'm sure people have watched the cutscenes of McFire and Ice and all of them, right? I'm sure. But it's one of those games. It's one of those games that people watch. It's a game that everybody kind of praises, and you'll watch those people, you listen to what those people say, and then very few actually follow through and buy the game. And I guess at the end of the day, that's like nobody's fault. It's like the way that the only reason I make these videos, or I want to talk about, I want to stress it, is like I want more of them. I want it to continue, and I get genuine, and you can't even argue. It's like, well, Alex, you don't worry. Like you're overreacting. Really? Because this has already happened. Alan Wake has never sold well. And it took 13 years. They had to make Quantum Break, which at the time was not received well, and that game also didn't sell. Then they made Control, and that game did sell, and it was more mainstream. So it took them quite a while to even get a game that sold. And then it took them even longer to get a sequel to their critically acclaimed, first like big game, or Max Payne, obviously, but after Max Payne, since then, right? It's like, well, we just went through it. So I do not think I'm overreacting, because my gut tells me, I'll tell you right now, my gut tells me they do the 2 DLCs next year, and we get a scary, like eerie message from Sam Lake that's much like what they did in the first, because I think you want an Alan Wake 3. I think they want Alan Wake 3, and I would not be surprised, because they're very transparent. He's very transparent. I would not be surprised if they are honest and say the game, once again, shocker, the game sold nothing. And we did, because like, you need the money. You need the money. I don't think Epic or whoever, they're working with different people for different upcoming games, right? I don't think that they're going to be very happy. Obviously, like, being part of something like different is cool, and it's something you probably want to be known for. I would imagine, right? These companies would say, oh, the game is getting nominations and awards, and we did a musical in a game, and that's pretty cool, right? It's actually more than pretty cool, right? But it's like, yeah, they can be proud, but like, we know the industry. They're greedy. They want money. And not even just that. It's not even just greed. They are in a very bad time, right? Like, look at your watch, look at your calendar. This is a very bad era in terms of people keeping their jobs, studios staying alive, and these over-ambitious projects that do not sell at all, they do not happen. Across the industry, they are stopping more and more and more. Remedy is like one of the only ones that does it, and it's not, I believe, it is not going to last forever. And what does that mean? Well, maybe they're still okay, because, you got Control 2, and that might make money to kind of make up for Alan Wake, but like, does Alan Wake, the character, do you need to move him to a different game? Does he need to show up in Control to continue his story because people just will not buy the game called Alan Wake? Or do we eventually get a third game? I don't know. I will not wait. I guess I will. I just don't want to. I don't want to wait another 13. I mean, who in God's name, who knows where we're all going to be in 13 years from now? We might never get an Alan Wake 3. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for listening to my rants as always, but make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.